Previously on Sanity, the official game of the movie The Show.
What is timeline?
You alright?
Oh, this looks really interesting.
Content warning. This video contains instances of the French. Your discretion is advised.
Here is Timeline. This action-adventure game is based on the eponymous book from 1999. The grossly simplified way to explain the original novel is Jurassic Park, but time travel and medieval France. This game was developed by Timeline Computer Entertainment and published by Eidos in 2000. Yes, that's what the developers were called. And yes, this is the only game they ever made. Timeline Computer Entertainment was founded by author and film director, the late Michael Crichton. You may know him for writing the original Jurassic Park novel and directing the 1974 film Westworld, amongst other things. No clue if that's actually what he is known for. Most known for, I mean. And Timeline as well, I guess. He wrote the original novel, and as a matter of fact, served as director and lead designer for the game. Kinda unique, I guess. Can't say I know of other game adaptations directly headed by the famous author of the original work itself. Closest I got is Harley Ellison with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And there, he wasn't the lead designer, just one of the designers. Also, at several points, they had to shut down some of his ideas, like making the game literally impossible to finish purposefully, and they had to explain him why that was a terrible idea. So you know, Timeline actually wasn't Crichton's first step into the interactive medium. Earlier, he served as writer for the game Amazon, a text-adventure game from 1984. Plenty of games have an author's name attached to them, or have involvement, but like Tom Clancy personally didn't create all the billion games that have his name attached to them, especially now that he's been dead for a decade. Clive Barker's Undying has his name, and he served as writer, but like, he wasn't involved with the game's design, nor was he like meaningfully a lead. Now, there's a good reason this is the only game made by the same famous author as what it's based on. Crichton wasn't the game designer, and it shows. Oh, it shows! I'm not saying he wasn't talented, which he was, considering his body of work. It's just that it's pretty clear he wasn't qualified to lead a whole game, both as director and head designer. I also don't want to single him out. I don't like it when people do that with any piece of media like this. After all, he founded a studio to make this. There's a whole team of people involved who messed up alongside him. Despite what their name suggests, Timeline Computer Entertainment wasn't founded just to produce Timeline. They had plans to make other games based on Crichton's ball of work and not more. It's just that Timeline bombed so hard on release that it ended up being the only thing they ever made. And from what I can tell, everyone involved just acted like it never happened, leaving it to rot in abandoned obscurity nowadays. Unless, night dive, hear me out. While looking up whatever I could think of for this video, I came across a 2010 interview with American McGee where he reveals that EA was originally going to publish Timeline and he was signed on to it, and no joke, he kept begging them to drop it. To go the Gamasutra article,
They brought me on to work. It was really this weird, mysterious thing. I got flown out mysteriously to North Carolina and told that I had to be quiet. You can't talk about what you're going to see. And they walked me in, and there was Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton wanted to make a game. They said, "We want you to work with Michael Crichton on this thing." And I signed on to it, and I almost immediately started telling EA, "You've got to kill this thing. You can't make this game. It's really bad." That game subsequently went out and sold one copy, literally. It's called Timeline. They did a really bad movie based on it as well.
It does not ring a bell. That's crazy. I could always look up Timeline on GameFAQs.
Oh yeah, it ended up being published by Eidos. It's funny. He was an exceptionally cool guy. Really nice guy to work with. I felt bad to be the guy that killed the project at EA.
It was just a disaster.
It was really bad. It was really, really bad. Well, in that instance, there was a sort of basic misunderstanding about what was attractive in an interactive entertainment product, right?
Trying to find info on Timeline, the game that is kinda hard. Doesn't help that Timeline as a name is so generic. And this game's just deeply obscure. Okay, not that obscure, but yeah. I went through the archives of Blues News for this, which, if you aren't aware, is a gaming news aggregator website that has been around since the late 90s and is still being updated to this day, and still looks the same as it did 20 years ago. And yeah, I had to use the Wayback Machine for all these interviews and articles from long dead websites. And I also stumbled across the official Timeline website, but since this is an entirely Flash-based website from 2000, it didn't work. I myself hadn't heard of Timeline until I was doing research for my Trespasser video. Well, I thought I had no idea of this game's existence beforehand, until I stumbled across myself talking about it in 2022. I have no recollection of this. What? Was this theme from another timeline? The 2000 game adaptation of the 1999 novel Timeline by world-famous writer and author movie director Michael Crichton, brought to us by Timeline Computer Entertainment and IDOS. For the record, I'll be looking at Timeline, the game, as a standalone experience. I haven't read the novel, nor seen the film, which might even be worse than this game, believe it or not. Now, the game adapts only a portion of the book. It follows the same basic premise. Time travel through a hard sci-fi lens is used to research France during the 100-Year War, but I think it might be its own thing, following the rescue effort of a scientist trapped in the past. At least, from what I can tell. It just cuts down so much, abridges it. This game is incredibly short. How short, you may ask? The film adaptation of Timeline. That one has a longer runtime than it took for me to play through this game, and that's not including the bonus store mode, which would just make it slightly longer.
This ended up being half the length of the so long play of it up on YouTube.
Excuse the audio quality here, it's just 3 AM. I'm almost done with the editing until suddenly I realized that I forgot about this part. I intended to rewrite this part later on. I had written a small rant about how we approach historical fiction and the concept of historical accuracy, but I wasn't satisfied with what I had written and struggled to come up with how to word it better, so just leave it out. I'll just say that this game does not have the insane amounts of research that Crichton was known for as a novelist, unlike what it is based on. I'll talk about the tour for a bit before we start, as there's not much to it.
Blacksmiths worked only in iron. Steel making, for swords and armor, was a specialized process. Steel requires that the iron be melted and mixed with a small amount of carbon. This was done in a kind of oven, but during this time steel was of poor quality. It rusted, and it was brittle, so swords sometimes broke.
Crichton narrates the whole thing. It's a scavenger hunt for those scrolls, to which, upon picking up, Crichton explains a part of medieval European life related to where that scroll was. It takes 30 minutes to get through this whole thing, and I could see this being really cool if you were 11 in history class and were playing this as part of a medieval history curriculum, as one of the teachers found Timeline in a bargain bin somewhere, and it was 2003.
Chris, I need your help. This afternoon I'm traveling back in time to the 14th century, the year 1357 to be exact.
You play as Chris, who is just a dude, completely mute aside from jump grunts, which are nothing compared to the quick guy. He's a graduate student in, I presume, archaeology, whose professor has not returned from a trip back in time to 14th century France. Don't ask. The game never elaborates on time travel rules. Read the book and see how much they cut out if you're curious. Chris is joined by 2 other people in his journey back in time. Kate, an expert linguist and historian of feudal France, and a red-shirt bodyguard. I forgot his name.
Victor Barreto.
Oh yeah, that's his name. He's from ITC, a company involved with time travel technology. Also yes, I know he's wearing a blue shirt, but I'm not even a fan of Star Trek, and even I know what the red shirt is. He's there to die. Oh, they used the Windows Movie Maker default Arial font for the subtitles. Just like Trespasser! I had a bug where random pieces of textures would be missing, resulting in scenery and characters that had holes going through them. Changing the textures from 32-bit to 16-bit fixed that. Outside of that, the game worked perfectly fine, and supported 1080p widescreen right out of the box.
Press the button on the panel, Chris.
First phase, X-ray laser scan.
Our trio goes back in time to 14th century France. Our red-shirt guard has the soul marker used to summon the time machine, while all three of us are equipped with an earpiece for communication and translation, which is why at some points some of the dialogue is coming through only the left side. A stun button disguises a stick cause we can't kill anyone ever, or it will cause issues to the timeline. 2000 video game for Windows PCs. That wasn't funny. I could make a baby Hitler joke here, but I have a mortar video in the works right now where I'll inevitably run them to the ground.
Barreto, what are you doing here?
Right off the bat, they encounter a mysterious hooded man named Decker who recognizes our red shirt. And what is up with these running animations?
Decker!
Wait! Oh no! Oh, Barreto, no! Chris, he's dead.
He kills our red shirt and in the process breaks our soul marker, trapping us in France, feudal France to be specific.
Whoa, Chris.
Next up, rock sliding, our first action sequence here. Second action sequence after the brief chase with Decker. This is when I realized what Kate's role was.
When you get to the fork, keep to the right and try to slow down.
She's there to be the voice on the radio, telling you exactly what to do. There is no way to disable her advice, so I hope you weren't planning on figuring out things by yourself. Check it out! I'm throwing wooden barrels at guards, as you do in medieval France. Wait, aren't we supposed to not kill anyone? I feel like the blunt force trauma is going to lead to at least one death. I think we just killed someone, Kate. Jesus Christ. Since we're in town now, time to talk about this game's presentation. Now, I have a nostalgic bias towards games that look like this, if I'm being honest. While a lot of the animation leaves a lot to be desired, I think this game looks decent, judging by Y2K standards anyway. I dig the environments here, which according to the marketing material were made using historical materials as a guide. Oh, and everyone has that dark engine look, like the game straight out of Thief. In terms of sound, aside from music, which I'll get to later, it's alright I guess. Sound effects are fine, I don't know what else to say. Audio mixing is kinda fucked. Now some of this might be on me forgetting to adjust the music and leaving it on default. But leaving it at 3D cell may have also done a few things. Timeline's also got some stiff voice acting. Some of it is fine, but you'll mostly just be hearing bad French accents or gait.
These houses often backed up to another street. There's probably a door below.
Kate just sounds bored throughout the whole thing, like her actress just has no energy. We also got untranslated, unsubtitled dialogue in what's supposed to be Middle Frankish. I say supposed to, as I don't see any French names in the credits. I showed a native French speaker a bit of this game, as I was curious if they were actually speaking modern French all along. they don't. While they knew next to nothing about old Frankish, they did dig up a few francophone thoughts on this, including one review that gave it a 20%. Turns out it's just gibberish, meant to sound like old Frankish, apparently. Now there's our professor, being held by a local lord. There's going to be a tournament being held later on, where we might get an opportunity for a rendezvous. There's a problem though, no commoners allowed, so we're going to have to steal a knight's uniform and...
You want me to teach you how to use that? I'm not an expert, but let me tell you about
Help! I'm being forced into knight training by a Frenchman. And now, sword fighting. And here I thought that Morrowind had bad combat. You know what? I think I know what went wrong here.
I wanted to make a game that would be accessible to a large audience, including non-gamers, and I thought an E rating was important to attract that outside audience. I also wanted to see if it was possible for an E-rated game to be something other than kiddie stuff. But from the outset, my original design conception for the game minimized violence.
Make it E for everyone. Them trying to make a non-violent action game just resulted in death. Combat, where hits have no impact. A combat system, where there is no real strategy. Where it is just you swinging a sword over and over again. You aren't allowed to kill anyone, as to preserve the timeline, the 2000 so instead they just kneel down and loudly proclaim they surrender. You can kill them, but that just results in a game over instantly. The tournament. Wait, I don't think I ever specified what that tournament was. It's a jousting one, obviously. To my surprise, it's decent. I think this might be like the best part of the whole game. Sadly, it's just 3 opponents, and then done. You're done. I didn't know that cardboard was a thing back in the 1300s. Victory just leads to the lord having a temper tantrum, and instantly taking the professor to the castle. So now we're just gonna sneak in there. And yes, this is one of those, where the instant you are spotted it's a game over. So this isn't as bad as other like forced stealth sections.
Look, he's dangerous. Sorry. Goodbye, Chico. Hey, who the hell are you?
For one, it's short. 2, like everything else, it's pretty easy. You know, now that I've finally played it, I don't understand why people love Thief so much.
Look behind the tapestry.
Wow, Kate. Thanks for telling me exactly what to do. Now that we finally met our professor, I have a question. How does he not stand out with his glasses here? Well, anyway, he gives Kate a note telling us where his marker is at. And we make our escape on horse as Castle Guard is being invaded. Just realized that I haven't explained what exactly is going on here, which, in fairness, Timeline just doesn't do a good job of doing. The game, not the original novel that it is based on. I'm gonna go off of what I understood from the game itself, standalone. A quick rundown. So this is during the 100 Years' War. If you don't know your basic medieval European history, the English and the French were fighting each other for look, I have no clue how many years. Can't even approximate. At this time, the English held parts of France, and one of these areas is where we are. Our professor was right here, going up with the local English lord, Sir Oliver, on the English side, studying what happened specifically to this town right before it was sieged and sacked. During the whole ordeal, Sir Oliver got suspicious of our professor and now has him under heavy supervision. I think Decker is involved somehow. I have no clue what or who he is, and it is not elaborated. It's not elaborated on. My guess is that he's another time traveler, but he just straight up be a warlock or something. Oh god, I did that all in one take. To know from the professor, it just tells us to go to the mill, as he had entrusted the marker with a local monk. Wait, why the fuck is it the Windows Movie Maker Arial font now?
We made it. We're in the gear room. Marcellus's room is across the river in the foundry. You're going to have to jump up the gears so we can go through the mill. Nice job. Look, a couple of swords. Better take these.
Now, here's something I saw a few times from promo materials. Timeline was intended to be an action game for the non-gamer, which explains a lot of the design language here. Now, this is pure speculation on my part. What I feel like they were trying to do here was a modernization for 2000 of the adventure game, specifically the Mistlight. Now, here's the thing. In America, the adventure game was considered dead by then. It was thriving over in Europe though, and especially Germany, but that's a different story. So their solution was to make an action game for the Mist crowd. Misguided maybe. That, and I think Michael Crichton wanting to make his own Half-Life after being blown away by it while he was writing the novel. I feel like there's like bits and pieces of Valve's influence through the whole experience. Honestly, if Timeline had been made just a few years earlier, this would have been a first-person adventure game full of FMVs of digitized actors hamming it up. But really, if anything, Timeline feels like the Y2K version of the FMV game from the dawn of the CD-ROM. It definitely has the same interactive movie feel. It feels very guided and linear just like those, but without the excuse of being pre-recorded video. Gate, you got this! I believe in you. Go, Gate, go! Oh, please don't tell me she'll only stop if I just walk ahead. Seems like our neighbor's little Dimmy just learned what rhythm is. Oh, never mind, it was just the machinery. I think I take back at what I said about the sound effects earlier. I surprisingly got stuck here. I spent like 10 minutes trying to find where I was supposed to go, so I guess I could have used Gate's help. While I'm at it, I think this was the only time I managed to game over by killing someone. And as well, since I need to bring this up somewhere, let me say that this bow is so much better than the sword in this game.
A body has been discovered!
They killed Marcellus. Wait, is that the marker? Now all we have to find is the key to the secret passage.
Real human reaction, Kate.
You'll never.
And oh god! Dicker's got us cornered, but we narrowly escaped by summoning a time machine. Wait a fucking minute! Doesn't this violate our don't interfere and don't be inconspicuous rule? What? We just did this right in the faces of a bunch of bowmen from this era. Dicker's an ambiguous case, but come on. Well anyway, now I'm back in present day, where we started, but there's been an error. We're tiny, 3 inches tall.
Jumping on the panel buttons. The code is 579. The code is 579.
Well anyway, back to the 14th century. Into the abandoned chapel we head. I think we're trying to find the secret entrance to La Rouge, which, you know, I don't even know at this point. I spent an embarrassingly long time trying to do this swing puzzle. Holy shit! There's an actually decent encounter here. Okay, it isn't much. More of a low-tier Zelda boss, but still. Here we have the chapel's undead knight. The way Gate talks about him makes me think that this was already a legend by the time of the 100 Years' War. But at the same time, this whole game has been grounded in historical fiction, barring the time travel aspects, and Decker, who I think might just be another time traveler. This knight may just be someone with ITC tech trying to stop us. I mean, that could just be enhanced power armor, which stops us from being able to hurt him with our sword or arrows. Yeah, we can't kill him. Instead, what I have to do is crouch on each pressure plate that are laid out in a circle when this giant wheel approaches. And yes, I tried to get the wheel to run over him. That was initially my first thought, but no, it doesn't do anything. This guy's not much of a threat, as he suffers from the same issue as everyone else, in that jumping is a completely incomprehensible concept for the AI in this game. On the other hand, I had enough trouble fighting this guy that I ended up with merely 5 HP foe. This track feels like it was downloaded from royaltyfreemusic.com. Oh yeah, the music. Mostly alright. Some tracks are awesome. Some are just generic stuff. Main theme is a highlight. This was composed by Bill Brown, whose work on Trespasser led me to finding out about Timeline. One thing I forgot to mention is that he also did the sounds of Windows XP. Yes, I straight up missed that somehow. Yeah, this canoeing section is kinda dull.
Chris, ahead there are lots.
You know, it never gets absolutely not showing how suddenly the game just instantly loads upon a game over.
Are you at the landing? My earpiece is working. I got captured by Oliver's men. Professor is...
Now gate caught napped off the screen, huh?
I told you to kill them! What are you waiting for, you idiots? Do it!
Chris, thank goodness you're here.
Chris, hurry! We're down here.
So they have gate tied up and the professor is locked in a cage that's slowly descending. What is this Bond villain nonsense? And after all that... After losing a sword tool, this third guy just surrenders like all the rest. Despite, you know, being in a position where he would absolutely be desperately fighting to the death. Wait, why is the courtyard on fire? Why is everything on fire? What is happening? I feel like we just skipped right to the very end. Wait, he just kneels down while the building is on fire. Did we just kill Sir Oliver? I guess when he does it himself, it doesn't count as killing him. Now it's Decker time. Okay.
Hurry, Chris! We have to call the machine!
You made it! Let's get out of here!
You did it! Now let's go home.
Transmission successful. They have the professor. Welcome home, folks. Glad you're back.
That's it? That was the whole game? I feel like we just skipped from Act 1 to the very end. In an instant. Timeline, the 2000 game was... well, it's certainly interesting to look at as a failed experiment. Forgotten to time. I kinda liked experiencing this as a curiosity, and it's got a few enjoyable glimpses. But this is not good. This feels unfinished. Like I'm playing an early build of something, and this is merely whatever they had laying around in a playable state. I feel like Crichton and his Timeline team just didn't know what they were doing here, and whatever ambitions they had got lost to realities of game development, inexperience, and just bad ideas. I would really like to know what happened behind the scenes. Unlike Trespasser, no one cares to get in touch with former devs and interview them about it. This is really more of a theme park ride in spirit than a game really. A ride from the late 90s that flopped and closed down like a few years later, and you only know it exists because of Defunct Land, with the behind-the-scenes drama being far more interesting than the ride itself. And Michael Eisner might be involved somehow, I don't know.
Hey Chris, over here. Looks like you might be able to win some money.
Je l'ai vérifié. Je confie que toi, Lord Oliver, je me précipite.
Lord Oliver is sponsoring a contest in celebration of the tournament. See the targets in the stables? You can win 3 silver coins if you shoot 10 of them before he rings the bell 5 times. To shoot the bow, aim the tip of the arrow at the target. Click and hold the action key down to draw the arrow back. Then release the key when you're ready to fire the arrow.
J'ai vérifié quand et comment c'était et quand c'était. Oh, j'ai fait
Chris, the inn. You can get inside now. The professor says I'll pass as your page, but you need a knight's tunic. A shirt shouldn't be too hard to find if you can get into one of the rooms. I'll stay here and keep watch.
Keep to the ground floor. The bedrooms upstairs are off.